I grew up in this neighborhood where there was this strong economic presence. Everything was there. It was community. And then as I started to get older, it started to decline. I didn't understand what was going on. I grew up, I started having children. I went away for a little while. I played music. I traveled the country and I traveled all over the world. And when I would come home, I noticed, the first thing I noticed was that the neighborhood was really, really extremely dirty. Uh, I'm just one of those kind of people. So I would clean my front, and then I would end up cleaning next door, and then around the corner, and then one day I'm just like, what is going on here? So that's sort of the thing that kind of got me to looking at my neighborhood, what my neighborhood had become. So one day I just decided that I would do something. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just decided I would put one foot in front of the other, do a flyer, and ask other people if they felt the same way. I thought that revitalizing my commercial corridor should be where we should start, because after all, when I looked out my bedroom window, it was my nephews, my children's, my friends' sons and daughters selling drugs and doing all kinds of things in the neighborhood, stuff that we didn't do. So I started this process, and I got people involved in the neighborhood, and about 2004, we applied for a planning grant from the Wells Fargo. Then it was called WHYY. We got this planning grant, and with this planning grant, we embarked on a 18-month comprehensive, heavily neighborhood resident engaged planning process. And the planning process was a thing that educated us. We found out what happened, why the neighborhood lost all of its economic presence, and why our schools had declined, and all of these things. Basically, what happened to our neighborhood is what happened to just about every neighborhood of color across the United States that began to establish as middle-class neighborhoods in the 40s and the 30s when this was happening, was redlining. Now, this is not a big secret. This is something that happened across the United States. All of these neighborhoods were driven into economic depression. And all of our property values plummeted, and poverty set in, and all of the bad things that happen in impoverished neighborhoods. And it doesn't matter if, what ethnic group inhabits these neighborhoods. It's the poverty that causes all of this bad human behavior and lack of services and lack of economic opportunity and all of these things. So in learning all of these things, we understood that the way back to what our neighborhood was when I was a little girl was to regain our economic diversity. That also meant that once we started to do that, we would regain our value, property taxes would go up, and eventually we would be facing that. So we had to decide whether or not we wanted to take that path and embrace development and then face that monster when the time was right. And now the time is right. It's time to face that monster, all of us.